Dolores Cook. She knows more about this church than anybody I know. She'll make it come alive for you. And while she's talking, be thinking, could we move this church and take her somewhere else? Would it be a great retreat for us? We're just down the corridor, 18 miles and a little bit on a winding road. She's going to give you the history of this church that is part of the fabric of who we were as West Virginians. So Dolores, tell us about Brush Creek Presbyterian.
I certainly can do that, because in 1902, the Brush Creek Presbyterian Church became a church in my grandfather's blacksmith shop. And it was quite an exciting time. Maybe some of us can't relate to back in that period of time, but I remember my mother talking about it and how wonderful it was when two ladies came in there on horseback and started that church. They had nowhere to have service, so my grandfather said, we have a blacksmith shop out there that I'm not using, and why don't we just start the church there? So that's what they did. They cleaned it out. They got logs and made for benches. And so my mother, as I recall a long time ago, how excited they were. That the church was there for several years maybe, or maybe 2 years. So then after a certain period of time, there was another man, Mr. Turley, I believe his name was, who said that he would donate some land so they could build a church, which was about maybe a quarter of a mile on down the road. So they built a church, and that is where I recall going to church, that little church.
And you were a child?
I was a very young child, yes. And so after a period of time, there were a group of people that got together in the early 50s, and they said, we need a new church. And so Armico Steel Corporation owned some property on up the hollow there at Ridgeview, and they said that they would donate that property for a new church. Now the fascinating thing about building that new church, the men of the church went into the woods and they cut the logs. There was one of the members of the church that lived not very far away who had a little sawmill, and so they took the logs up there, and so that church is a wonderful building. It was built with love and
so it was
good workmanship.
Yeah. Timbered right there on
Timbered
the land.
right there on the land.
And then milled just a little bit away. Now, the pews that are in the church, and they're beautiful, did they make those
No.
on the land?
No, those pews were bought, and also the not only the pews, but the communion table and the chairs and the pulpit, they were all purchased, I believe, in North Carolina shortly after that church opened, which it opened in 1952. And it used to be a very active church. It was when the coal companies were in business there. We had a lot of people.
How many would you have?
Oh, we would probably have close to 100 on Sundays when things were the economy was really good and the mines were working, and lots of activities. But I want to go back just one thing about the building of the church that's there now. The ladies, they had a ladies association in the church. And so those ladies, they had aprons They made aprons, and they went to the businesses in the county, like over at our county seat in Madison, and they had pockets in their aprons, and they asked for donations to help build the church, to buy the things that, you know, we really needed other than the structure itself. And so they got quite a bit of money in the pockets of their aprons that helped with that. Now, when we celebrated our 100th anniversary in 2002, we had a few of those aprons left.
Oh.
And we sold them there.
Auctioned them off to...
We just, anybody that wanted, yeah.
What a piece of history.
And so...
Did you have children who had maybe grown up in the church that came back for the celebration?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And
so you had maybe 200 or 300 people?
We invited all the past ministers who were still living. Several of those people came, and the people who had grown up there in the church. And so we had a wonderful celebration, but we had another celebration before the 100th. About 3 years prior to that, we had a celebration too, because a lot of the people were getting old at that time in the church, and they said, well, you know, I'm not sure we're going to make it to 100, so let's go ahead and have a celebration. And we did. We had 2 celebrations. So that church is and always will be very dear to my heart, because that's where I never left the community. I grew up there. I feel like that I have done a few things in my life to help in the community and in our state. But the most important thing that I think that I have done is what I have done in that church, because most of the people that I graduated with, they left. You know, there was no jobs. The mines began to close, and so they went to other places. But I stayed there, and I often wondered why I stayed there. But yet I know that God had a reason for me staying there, because I played the piano. They had, you know, all those years, and did a number of things in the church. But it breaks my heart to know that it's gone, and I just hope that someone will be involved in it now and feel as strongly about it as I have, or as I do, still do.
Dolores, I want to thank you for coming down to Charleston, coming up to Charleston, spending this time with us. I personally fell in love with this beautiful church. You turn off what I would call the main, but small, well-paved country road, and as you round the first bend, up in the crook of the hollow is this beautiful little white church with a steeple. There's an organ inside, beautiful pews, and I just think she wants a home, this little church. So put on your thinking caps. We've got to find another use for her. I think she's got a lot of uses and a lot of years left in her. So we thank Dolores Cook for sharing a part of West Virginia history with us today. Hope we'll see you soon.